Hey, how's it going? Nick here, and today is part 2 of my current chest and triceps routine. I work on my muscle groups twice a week, and in my first chest and triceps workout, I prioritize strength, whereas the second workout will be focused on hypertrophy. I've chosen several exercises I feel are suited for chest and triceps, but this is just what fits my preference. You might want to try some of these, and some you might want to avoid like it's your ex. But with that said, let's get started. This week, I'm starting off with another compound movement, the TRX Push-up. Since I'm focused on volume here, I performed 4 sets of 8 to 10 reps. This exercise is fantastic for advancing the push-up movement once regular push-ups becomes pretty easy because it requires you to stabilize much of your entire body. The fact that the push-up movement can be performed and advanced outside of the gym is another plus, especially with the looming threat of a second lockdown. Because of this, I think push-ups are highly undervalued, but mainly because people don't know how to advance or progress in the movement. When I started doing these, I felt like I was recruiting muscles I didn't even know I had just for stabilization. This exercise really requires you to maintain a tight core. Lastly, notice that during the eccentric portion of the exercise, the part where I'm going down, I allow myself to widen my grip, but as I go up, I narrow them. This is essentially mimicking a fly and press movement at once. In some ways, it's basically the equivalent of someone choosing to do dumbbell presses, since they can press the dumbbell upward and also squeeze their chest closer. Next, I moved on to cable flies. The chest can press and squeeze as its primary movements, but too often we neglect the squeezing motion to develop our chest muscles. If we ignore cable flies and do primarily barbell workouts, we really don't get the opportunity to perform that squeezing motion. In my opinion, I find that performing a fly movement helps create a more complete chest routine. But with that said, another reason I enjoy doing flies is because they are largely an isolation movement that allows me to continue adding volume to my chest without taxing my triceps. I'd like to have strength to induce some much needed development in my triceps, and I find that flies give me a great opportunity to target my chest while giving my triceps time to rest from push-ups or benching. Now, do you have to do cable flies? No. As I've said before, choose what fits your preference. Pick 2 to 3 exercises that work for you to emulate those movements. Learn the form and then progressively overload. Boom. Now you've got a chest that's hot off the press. Okay, speaking of triceps, I chose to do some pushdowns. These are great, but it's pretty easy to ego lift on them, and in doing so, you can really compromise your form. There's not too much risk of injury, but you end up compensating with your shoulders, and well, this workout's mainly to isolate your triceps. What you want to do is adopt a stance that allows you to remain stable so that the pushing movement initiated by your triceps will allow it to contract fully without the use of momentum. I like to have a small bend in one or both of my knees. Look at how my elbows are locked in place and there really isn't any shoulder flexion. My triceps are contracting to allow my forearm to extend. And by the way, you can use any type of handle for this workout. You'll probably notice that most people choose to use the rope because it allows for a deeper contraction. If you use the V-bar, the contraction isn't as deep, but on the other hand, you can also move more weight with the bar. My opinion? Well, you guessed it. It doesn't matter. Don't get too hung up on the variation. Otherwise, you'll never get started on your workout. Instead, choose based on your preference, focus on the form, and progressively overload. Regardless of the handle, it's still a push-down exercise that targets your triceps. You know what won't help your triceps? Not doing the workout. Alright, before I go further, let me say this. If you want big arms, don't neglect your triceps, okay? They make up 2/3 of the size of your arms. Now with that said, the next exercise I did was the dip machine. There's nothing wrong with machines inherently, especially if you are performing an isolation exercise with the intent of growing a specific muscle group, but because machines are mainly used to isolate muscles, they get a bad rep for not being very functional, and I agree with that, but in my case, I'm simply trying to induce growth. Here, I chose to go with 3 sets of 10 reps for 150 pounds. It's kind of hard to go wrong on this machine because it really locks you into the movement, but here's my advice. Don't ego lift if it compromises your form. You'll know if you're going too heavy when your butt comes off the seat and you need to impose the force of your entire body just to push the weight down, or if your elbows are flaring out. Select a moderate weight and perform the exercise properly. You will grow your triceps and you'll do so in a safe way. Lastly, I decided to finish off with some core strengthening exercises. Now, as I said in my last video, you really can't have too strong of a core, and for someone who has a desk job, I really need to counteract all that sitting I do throughout the day. But even then, I'd say most of us tend to neglect our core, and that's really a shame because a strong core translates quite well to activities inside and out of the gym. Well, that's it for today. Next week, I'll be doing part 2 of my shoulder workout, and hopefully after that, my knee injury will heal up enough to where I can finally showcase a leg workout. I should warn you, my knee injury has kept me from doing legs for almost a year, so get ready for some graphic content. I mean, YouTube might even flag me. But with that said, I hope you found the subject of this video helpful, and if you did, consider hitting that like button and subscribe. Also, comment below about your training preference. I'm always trying to expand my knowledge, and learning from others is one of the best ways to do so. As usual, I enjoy making these videos on a personal level, but my main objective is to share advice from both my knowledge and experience so that you can achieve your own fitness goals and avoid the mistakes I made. But you know the deal. Until next time, stay safe, and I'll see you next Tuesday.